I am so happy that they were doing that. I would like to welcome each and every one of you today to our service. First of all, I'll start with an apology. Um, if you got our program this week, you saw or maybe you read that we were supposed to have a guest speaker. Now, this guest speaker was going to speak to us from England, and originally he comes from Kenya, but somehow it didn't work out. So you still have old me to come and speak to you today, and I hope that you will. The Lord will open our hearts so that we will hear Him today. So the first thing is to apologize, and the second is to welcome um, everybody, and especially new faces. I can welcome today Sister Cheslin, Sister Cheslin Lewis. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Sister Lewis, we had contact some time ago. Oh, yes, it's good to see you. You are welcome to Stuttgart. I believe this is the first time you are joining us. Welcome. Sister Cheslin just moved to Stuttgart from USA. And the very first time, I think the week she came, she went to the church. And so I was here on Zoom, and then I had a call, and she was asking me, "Where is the church?" And I said to her, "Well, we are on Zoom." And so I sent her the link, and now she's here with us. So, Sister Cheslin, welcome to the Stuttgart Stuttgart International SDA Church. And we are a small church, but big heart. You know, you would see. I mean, I'm praying that very soon we will be able to go back to church, and you will experience the warmth and the friendship in this church. Welcome in a special way, and I welcome everybody else who is here today. I'm not seeing any new faces, but welcome to all of you for joining us today. Let's go into our message for the day. Um, I believe that the Lord will still speak to us, even though I'm not supposed to be the one who was supposed to speak today. But I believe that once we have come, God is going to give us His word. So let's just pay attention and pray. Today we meet Jesus once again. If you have just joined us, or if you are not familiar with what we are doing this year, we are meeting Jesus as He is introduced or described in the book of Revelation. So today we meet Him as the most caring one, the most caring. Jesus is the most caring person you would ever meet, and that's how He is depicted in the book of Revelation. And this is what we are going to talk about today. And let me just repeat the text. It says, when the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of all who had been martyred for the word of God and for being faithful in their testimony. They shouted to the Lord and said, "O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you judge the people who belong to this world and avenge our blood for what they have done to us?" Then a white robe was given to each of them, and they were told to rest a little longer until the full number of their brothers and sisters, the fellow servants of Jesus who were to be martyred, had joined them. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We are grateful. Our hearts are filled with joy. Whenever we read your word, there is an expectation. We expect, Lord, that you speak to us. And so today I pray that you open our hearts for your word. Lord, please, you know me. I'm not eloquent. I don't know much. But I pray that you use me as a channel, that your children, your people, and myself as well, we will hear you today. And that you show us what to do, that you show us and assure us that you care about us. So may we listen carefully and trust you continually. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Um, does God really care? Does God really care? Have you asked yourself this question before? Sometimes we all ask that, does God care? I read sometimes about calamities and problems and troubles, and sometimes, I am also tempted to ask, does God really care? Now, even during this pandemic, um, so many Christians have died. So many people who have just gone to worship God have just caught this and they have died. So one may ask, does God really care? People who go and worship God, why should God allow them to die? There are so many Christians who have died. I was visiting a church in Canada, and I had a story. One person, a couple, they were coming to church on one icy morning, and their car just skidded and went into a lake in Canada. And the man was able to get out of the car, but the woman was not able to get out, and she died. So somebody who is going to church, does God really care? Why do these things happen? And I can tell you stories upon stories of how people have suffered, how people have died, people who are Christians, people who are supposed to be God's children, how they have suffered and how they have died. I also read about a couple, their car, they were just driving home for Thanksgiving and their car skidded on ice and they were able to control it. And they prayed and they said, God, please take us home safely. And just on the highway, on the motorway, another car crossed and just smashed them. And the lady just lost her life. Does God really care? And there was a couple who were just about to have a wedding, like Christian couple. They were just about to have a wedding, and a few weeks before the wedding, the lady just got a plane crash and she died. So we ask ourselves, does God care? We hear of missionaries, we hear of Christian people who are attacked, who are killed. And what is God doing when people are killed like that? So you ask, you probably wondered why. Maybe in your own life, I'm talking about other people, but maybe in your own life, you have encountered some problems, you have encountered some hardships, you are going through something, and you ask yourself, does God care? Well, you are not alone. Even the disciples asked, and not one time, a number of times. Even the heroes of the Bible, they kept asking, God, do you really care? You read from the book of Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 38. There is a story. Jesus tells the disciples to go to the other side of the lake. And just when they were going, after a hard day's work, they were preaching the gospel, they were working hard. And when they were going, they just came across a storm and everything was out of control. And what was Jesus doing? He was asleep in the boat. So they woke him up and they asked him, Master, do you not care we are perishing? So even the disciples asked, don't you care? That question, don't you care? And Martha, you remember the story of Martha. Martha went to Jesus. One day, Jesus had come to their house and she was busy working very hard to provide something for Jesus and his guests or the other guests. And then Mary was just sitting by idly. So Martha goes to Jesus and she asks, don't you care my sister has left me to do all the work? So these questions we get asking, we keep asking Jesus, we keep asking God all the time as if he doesn't care. But today, we meet Jesus in the same situation in the book of Revelation. It would seem that he doesn't care. Because, when you read Revelation chapter 4, we have read it already, so I believe you remember what we read. God is on the throne, and the angels are worshiping him. 24 elders are surrounding him. The living creatures are there. Everybody is worshiping. And so you can see, you can tell that he's in control. And so you wouldn't expect anything wrong to happen. If God is in control, why would anything wrong happen? But we also read that there was a scroll and nobody could open the scroll, and so John is weeping. We also studied that. We just read that. So finally the Lamb comes. Jesus, the Lamb, he comes up and he takes the scroll, and he has the power to open the scroll. And when he breaks the scroll, we learned the other time that 4 horses came out. We saw 4 horses who were riding, and the first one was a white, was conquering. The next one red, the other one black, and the other one was pale. And we read all that was happening, and we saw that there was in the beginning there was that victory. The white horse is riding victorious, and he's conquering. And so we believe that the gospel was going with victory, with power, and with all the faithfulness, and the gospel was being preached to all the people. But then the red horse appears and everything changes. And then there's famine, there's war, there's all these things, there's death. So, does God really care? And today we read that the 5th seal is broken. And then John says, I saw the souls under the altar. People who have been killed, people who have lost their lives because they were faithful to God. So if God is sitting on the throne, and if God is in control, why do we still have people who are martyred, people who are killed, people who are murdered because they are faithful to Jesus? The souls under the altar. So the question comes again. So the souls under the altar, they are asking, oh Lord, how long? How long are you going to avenge our blood? How long are you going to avenge our blood? For those who have done this to us, how long are you going to do this? So it did seem that God did not care. But we read in the text that he gave them white robes, and he tells them, wait a little longer until your brethren who will be martyred have joined you. So it's not about, do you care? The disciples were asking, don't you care? Martha was asking, don't you care? But in this instance, the question is not, don't you care? The question is, how long? It's different. It's entirely different. And I think sometimes when we are tempted to ask, don't you care? Maybe we should be asking, how long? Because those who were murdered, those who were martyred, they knew, they believed in Jesus. They knew that Jesus was powerful enough. They knew he was there. Who will give their lives? Who will give up living? Who will really allow themselves to be murdered for his faith if they don't believe that God cares? So the question is not whether God cares, but the question is how long. And I think this is the question we should all be asking. But then Jesus tells them, they are told it's only a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Just wait a little longer. And if you look at the table that I've displayed here on the screen, you notice that when Jesus was talking to his disciples in Matthew chapter 24 and Matthew 25, it's recorded there. You see that there is a similar, you see that this is like exactly the same thing that he predicted is happening. The same thing is shown to John in Revelation chapter 4 to 8, verse 1. Chapter 4, verse 1 to 8. But just look at it. Just look at it. You see that Jesus is giving them in Matthew 24 the general prophetic survey of what is going to happen. And the 4th horseman, we learned last time that it was what was going to happen within Christianity in the world. That is what was given to John, because when John was invited to go into the throne room in heaven, he was told to come and see what will happen after this. So everything that John was shown was just God's sequence, God's time, God's schedule. And so it's just a matter of time. So this is why they are asking, how long? And so Jesus says, this gospel will be preached. And so you see that when he opens the first seal in Revelation chapter 6, you see a rider on a white horse who proclaims Christianity. That's Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. So when Jesus says in Matthew 24, the gospel will be preached, and you see the white horse is a symbol of the gospel being preached in victory, with swiftness, with power, being preached, just the same way Jesus said it. And Jesus also said, wars and rumors of wars and famines and earthquakes will come, but then it will not be yet the end. Matthew 24, 6 to 8. And then he opens the parallels in the opening of the second, third, and the fourth seals. The riders on the red and the black and the pale horses inflict war, famine, epidemics, and all these troubles. The same thing Jesus said in Matthew 24, that's the same thing that is being shown John here in Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 to 8. And then it follows a period of tribulation, the same way Revelation records it. And Matthew 24, 21, Jesus talks about a great tribulation. And seal 5, that's what we are talking about today. Seal number 5 is broken, and we see souls under the altar, people who have been murdered, people who have been martyred because of the tribulation, because of the persecution they have gone through for their faith. So the same thing Jesus is talking about here. And then this will be followed by, Jesus said there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. And then that immediately follows the tribulation. And we see that the seal number 6 is broken in Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 and 13. And there's a great earthquake, there's a sign in the sun, there's the moon and the stars. It's the same way Jesus says it in Matthew 24. So after that, the Son of Man returns. Matthew 24, 30. And Revelation chapter 6, verses 14 to 17 say, the sky rolls back and the Lamb arrives. And what happens? Matthew 24, 31, angels gather the elect, and seal number 7 is broken, half-hour silence in heaven, while heavenly beings accompany Christ to earth to gather the elect. So, my brothers and sisters, it's not a matter of does God care? That shouldn't be the question we should be asking. The question we should be asking is how long? How long is it going to be? Because these people under the altar, they know that God cares. They believe that God cares. Otherwise they wouldn't really give up their lives for something they don't trust, someone they don't trust, something they don't believe in. So God cares. So your question, if you are going through anything at this moment, you may be going through some troubles, you may be going through some hardships, maybe you have problem with your finances, maybe you have problem with your family, maybe with your spouse, maybe at work, whatever it is, the question shouldn't be, does God care? The question should be, how long? Because something, God always told his people that he is going to be always there for them. He has promised that he is always going to be faithful to us if we will trust him, if we will obey him, if we will follow his instructions. There is no way that he's going to disappoint any of us. It's just a matter of time. And so these troubles, these tribulations, these hardships are going to happen because Jesus was revealing to John, and he told his disciples that it will happen. The end times when he is just about to come, there will be so many problems, there will be so many troubles, there will be so many hardships. But the question is, how do we beat the three evil riders? Because we know that after the first horse rider, all the rest who were following were just bringing trouble upon calamity, persecution, and hardships, hunger, death, pestilence, and all those things. How do we beat these things? Well, God's promise holds true for every generation. This is what he told the Israelites when he rescued them from Egypt. He rescued them from all the plagues, from all the hardships that were coming upon the Israelites, and he gave them this promise. He said, "You must keep my Sabbath days of rest and show reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. And if you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands, I will send you the seasonal rains. The land will then yield its crops, and the trees of the field will produce their fruit. Your threshing seasons will overlap with the grape harvest, and your grape harvest will overlap with the season of planting grain. You will eat your fill and live securely in your own land. I will give you peace in the land, and you will be able to sleep with no cause for fear. I will rid the land of wild animals and keep your enemies out of your land. In fact, you will chase down your enemies and slaughter them with your swords. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000. All your enemies will fall beneath your sword. This is the promise that was given to God's people, yet it was conditional. God said, if you will be faithful, you have nothing to worry about. If you will be faithful to me, if you will keep my commands, if you will have a friendship with Jesus, if you will obey him, if you will go to him all the time on a daily basis, pray to him, listen to him, you have nothing to fear. You will go through all the pestilence, you may go through all, but you still be protected. God cares. God really cares, and he protects, and it's just a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. I read an interesting story about a Christian who was called John Careless. That's an unusual name. Somebody who is called Careless, and that was his surname. His surname or his family name was Careless. I don't know, but this is a name that is real. So he was in prison because he's a Christian. He was in prison for his faith, and before they were going to murder him, kill him for his faith. It was going to be a martyr, and before he died, he wrote to a friend. He said, "Now my soul is turned to her old nest again, and has taken a sweet nap on Christ's lap. I have cast my care upon the Lord, and will be careless according to my name." So you see, he trusted Jesus so much that even when they told him that he was going to die, he cared less. His name is Careless, so he cared less. And I think we should trust Jesus so much so that whatever happens, we should know that he cares. Whatever happens, whatever we are going through, we should know that he cares. Sometimes even when we are going through rough times, when we are going through tough times, when we are frightened, when we are afraid that things are going to go or sink, maybe this is when God is even training us to be stronger. Have you heard about how eagles train their young ones? Eagles are very loving creatures, and somewhere along the line, Mama Eagle decides that it's time the baby eagles learn to fly. So what they do, they just pick one of them and go very high, very, very, very high, and just drop them. And this eagle doesn't know how to fly, and it's frightened, and it's coming down and just coming just in the nick of time when it's just about to fall and die, the mommy will just pick it up again, take it back, and repeat the same thing until it learns to fly. Sometimes God is doing that to us so we can learn to be strong, we can learn to stand, and uh, be our faith can really be perfected. So we have to go through some of these things sometimes, and we should really not be afraid. God says, I will look favorably upon you, making you fertile and multiplying your people, and I will fulfill my covenant with you. You will have such a surplus of crops that you will need to clear out the old grain to make room for the new harvest. I will live among you, and I will not despise you. I will walk among you. I will be your God, and you will be my people. So, in conclusion, sometimes I just wish that God will not let these things happen to us. I just wish that He would really show Himself to be omnipotent. He will show Himself to be omnipresent. Just intervene on time. But sometimes He just doesn't intervene. So He tells the souls under the altar, just wait a little longer. More of my people are coming. More of my people will be murdered. Does it mean God doesn't care? Now let's look at the big picture, or maybe we can put it into perspective. When we read the story of Moses, Moses was such a faithful servant. He served God faithfully. He just left everything he was doing, and God asked him to deliver his people. He did it. Moses obeyed God. And what happened? These people were so troublesome. They gave him so much grief that one day he just made a mistake. God told him, do this, and Moses missed and did something different. And so God tells him, you are not going to go to the promised land. Moses was devastated. Moses was devastated. He felt so sad. And so he went to ask God, please, God, please, I want to go there. Please let me go. He kept asking God until one day God told him, hey, Moses, I do not want to hear this topic from you again. I don't want to discuss. Don't mention this to me again. Never. Wow. How would you feel if God tells you not to pray about a subject? Something that is so important to you, God tells you, stop praying about this. That is what happened to Moses. And God said, okay, well, the only thing I'll do for you, just go stand on the mount, look at the promised land. You will see it. I will show it to you, but you are never going to get there. That's what God told Moses. Moses was very sad about it until one day God tells him, you climb up to this mountain, go there and die. I wouldn't even let them bury you because no, if they know where you die, they will probably make a shrine and they will worship that place. So I wouldn't even let. So God tells Moses to go, and after all the work, after all the faithfulness, after all the hard work, God says, you just go. And that Moses was very sad. But you know what happened? When God allows things like that to happen, the story of Moses should really comfort us. Because Moses went there, he died, and what happened? Satan thought, well, yes, he disobeyed God, so now he dies, and I got him. And then God sends an angel. That angel carries Moses to heaven. Moses is in heaven. He was asking to go to a promised land. Maybe he would have lived there for 10 years, 20 years, something like that. But Moses was so wrapped up about it. It was so important to him that he wanted to go. He wanted that land so much. And God said no. He was sad about it. But what did he get instead? He gets to heaven where he could live forever. So when we are going through these things, and when God seems to be silent, when it seems that God doesn't care, my brothers and sisters, He always has something better. So the souls under the altar, He gives them a white robe, and He says, wait a little longer. And I think that is what is going on right now. Whatever we are going through, whatever is happening in this world, we just have to wait a little longer. And while waiting, don't forget what the Lord told the Israelites. He says, if you are going to be faithful to me, I will make sure that you have peace. I will make sure that you have what you should eat. I'll make sure that whatever you need will be supplied. And when God says it's time for you to rest, it's even the best. No, I read an important comments about how in the days of Noah, when Noah was preaching the gospel, when it was about to rain, the flood was about to come, all the faithful people, like Methuselah died in the same year that the flood came. So God didn't want the faithful people to face the flood, so He called so many of them to go and rest. So the souls under the altar, God just wanted them to rest. So until He will reveal His kingdom. And I believe that when the kingdom is revealed, we will see that God had a better purpose. All right. Sometimes it's very painful. Sometimes it's painful that God doesn't seem to care. Now, if you read the story of John the Baptist, John the Baptist was just preaching the gospel. He was a faithful man. He was even rebuking the sin of Herod, and for that reason he was in prison. And Jesus did not seem to care. He sent his disciples to go and ask Jesus, hey, are you the one who is coming? And Jesus doesn't answer them. He says, just look at what you see. Just witness what you are seeing and just go and tell John. And for a dance, for an erotic dance, John was beheaded. God didn't seem to care. But reading the story of Moses, God always has something better for His children. So no matter what happens, let's just hang in there. And let's just believe in God. And let's be faithful to Him. What He has shown us to do, He says, just obey my commands. Be faithful to me. Have a friendship with Jesus. And a day is coming. And it's not going to be long. When you look at the signs, when you look at what is happening in the world today, it's not going to be long. He is going to come. And all of us, we will understand why God sometimes leaves some of the things to happen. I pray that all of us today who are here in this service, all of us and our children and our families, we are going to be faithful to God. So when He comes, we will join Moses. We will join Elijah. We will join all those who are in heaven. May God bless us as we keep ourselves faithful, as He helps us to be faithful. He fills us with the Spirit